Just because otherwise I'll get distracted. So, all right. I might have to go back and because I think the discussion about the hostile factions made sense, but okay. I don't think they're necessarily going to talk about a whole lot of stuff that's going on in the next 2 months. They're in the midst of testing their flight model, so they might touch on it, but I'm not sure they're going to necessarily go into it in depth. I mean, we've seen it before. It's a flight model, whatever. Control surfaces, yeah, they flap, whatever. I don't think they got to spend a whole lot of time on that. So let's add that to the gloss over category, flight model. They always talk about ships. Stinger because Vandul and Nyx and data mines. RSI Salvager because suspicions, and they need some sort of early-ish or starter ship, LTI token, whatever. And then there's going to be the mid-range, which is probably this Shiv thing. And I think the Shiv, because it's probably related to Squadron 42, is going to be your 200 referral bonus. Because there's apparently something to do with shipjackers and kit bash ships in Squadron. So those are probably the three that we're going to see tomorrow. Genesis Star Engine, they always talk about Star Engine and look at pretty planets and stuff like that. I'm kind of hoping that they talk about Vulcan, so I guess I'll make that green. But mostly in terms, I don't necessarily need to know a whole lot about it, but a quick thing about basically how it enables all this other stuff, or is waiting for it. And basically when they're hoping to throw that in there. I mean, we've already seen it in certain preview builds, not preview builds. It's been making its way in to the code base. It's just that they want to, I think, do a hard cutover from the sounds of it before they can necessarily do all the other stuff that depends on it. Castra is dependent on version 5 of the Planetech / Genesis stuff, so I could see them, if they're going to preview Planetech V5, I could see them using either Castra to do it and or Terra. Terra would be a bonus. But in terms of what they're working in the next 12 months, I would expect the bulk of the... Well, actually, both of these systems are going to need one Planetech V5 and time to build. But... okay, Vulcan enables the inventory rework, scanning, FPS scanning, and hacking gameplay. I don't know they're going to necessarily touch on most of these very much, unless they've got something they're really excited to show off on scanning. But scanning might be so close that they leave it until IAE or resumption of the IFCs. Hacking, on the other hand, hasn't been talked about in forever, but it has been mentioned in the monthly reports. So an update to that, in that it probably is going to need to wait for Vulcan, which pushes it to probably at least second quarter next year, if not later. But the data running, you can see them throwing that in quicker in order if this unannounced Apollo variant, possibly Hermes, is going to be released at IAE, then it would make sense to try and time at least the data running gameplay into the IAE so that they don't end, so that upset Apollo owners don't have to suffer the way Drake Herald and MSR owners have for having years of waiting for their, probably not as much as the Reclaimer did, but probably only just barely. Actually, is the Herald beating them out? I don't know. I'm kind of hoping they gloss over the flight model. Like, updates on all this be fine, but like, hopefully they're not spending a lot of time on it. It's only a 2-hour thing. Flight model, engineering, fire. Like, we've seen crafting, inventory. We've seen all this stuff already. I don't think they need to spend a whole lot of time on it. Crafting is, of course, something that they're still going to be talking about in the next 12 months. So if they update it all, I'm thinking the hangar crafting, which leads into the hangar upgrades, and or the mobile unit, and the crafting ship crafting stations, which I'm thinking need to be retrofitted into a lot of ships, especially anything that supports a subcraft of some sort. And any large ship running multi-crew gameplay should be able to probably print at the very least its own fuses and some other items. I'm hoping that they talk about hangar upgrades because they haven't talked about it forever. We already have instance hangars. It would also enable a first level of crafting, and hopefully they could work on their mag locks as well. With that, or even in advance of crafting, especially if it gets delayed, I really kind of hoping that they work on this player-to-player trading stuff. There's no reason to think that they're going to mention this. In fact, as of February, it didn't seem like they were paying that much attention to it at all. But, because they were setting up as being dependent on base building. The thing is, you got the kiosk now, the item transferability now, you have the Wicklow systems in place. You don't have to put everything on freaking freight elevator. There should be ways of transiting it in and out of the inventories automatically and adjusting the ownership records on the entitlement databases that that they were talking about with Benoit last month. And they could get the eBay of Star Citizen into the game and make that whole piece a lot easier. Blueprints. They're talking about blueprint stuff being ready. I could see them showing that off because we have not seen a whole lot of how blueprints are going to work. So hopefully they have some early prototype work on that. They could kind of update social apps, but it's a kind of a gloss over thing, right? They talked about what they want to do it at CitizenCon last year. So it doesn't make sense to necessarily harp on it a whole lot. Let's go stick that up in the gloss over category. Command module. You could call it Starbay. All right. Command module. Figure second quarter because, but they'll need it in advance of the Ironclads. Well, not necessarily, but it would be good. I think that's what they're aiming for. And actually, that also puts Ironclad also puts a crafting dependency possibly on it because the Assault, I believe, has crafting bay stuff to support its load. Command module quarter 2 Ironclad support. It also means engineering / crafting want to be in before that. Because I think they're going to want to have the Ironclads done by CitizenCon / Invictus. Ship-to-ship resupply. The resource system, whatever they're doing with the command module, will probably assist in sorting out the resupply system. They already have the refueling from, say, or for the Starfarer. Now, is it still broken or not, or working or not? I don't know. So I don't have a Starfarer. Even without the drones, though, because they're obviously not too fussed about drones. It might be something that they might find interesting to throw on there.
Admiral said,
Drones.
I have 4.2k channel points LUL.
Congratulations. Wait, I was going to meet you guys. Hold on. Actually, let's put that on something different. All right, the ownership stuff actually probably belongs with player-to-player trading. That should allow kiosk transfer of entitlements. Thanks for ships. That'll probably also be related to item imprinting, but so yeah, if especially if they touch on this player-to-player trading, hopefully they talk about this ownership piece as well. Sorry, ship-to-ship resupply. So all the ships are getting the little fueling nozzles put in them. So ship-to-ship resupply would be one of those things that fuel hoses, FE or freight elevator, and ship movable. Basically oil drums, or the SC equivalent of oil drums. A lot of airports in remote areas have they just drop off the big 55-gallon oil drums, the big metal ones, and pilots have to carry their own fuel pump and hose to basically dip into that in order to pump gas into their aircraft when they're refueling at these remote sites, because there's no services there to come and pump gas for you. What does this also enables? Not only, well, let's say ship hangar ops, which is useful for the Idris and whatnot, but it also would pave the way for things like the Crucible. Between the command module and ship-to-ship repair and resupply, the Crucible becomes a viable candidate for possibly 2027. All right. Would be really funny to talk about the drones preview if they have it. Like if they did anything for base building, throwing the drones around. Because watching them move might actually be useful. I think the base building team was talking about that last February. So, all right. Things about next. Let's actually turn next screen. Pretty sure they'll be talking about next. They're doing voice lines, everything like that. They got the new ship seller. We already talked about the Shiv. Comes from the gray market, based in Nix. Would see possibly teaches as like one of their main outlets or whatever. So it could definitely, if they're gonna announce the Shiv, it makes sense to talk about the gray market and teaches and going back to Levski, especially in advance of a very quick release or an impending release, however you want to talk it, or even an impending preview, whatever. The hostile faction, suspected named Blades, using Vandal tech, doing false flag raids. This would allow mission content probably for an A-roll conflict. Actually, it'd be interesting to see if the Freedom Fighters, when they're pushed back at the end of this next event, ends up pushing that conflict back into Nick somehow, or the conflict simply, or it's a new conflict that picks up on that side. It allows the Vandal type ships and updates of the Asperia versions driven by NPCs to be put into false flag rates as a mission type into the next system, which might not significantly differ from that much from After Squadron, but without spoiling Squadron. Because after Squadron, they can put in, say, Squadron tissue paper Vandal and just lots of them or something. So yeah, that's... So again, if they want to talk about next, it might make sense to introduce this new faction earlier rather than later. Because between that and the possibility of pushing the ASD and regen crisis to the next system for the next phase, assuming the Doctor escaped. I don't know what the lore team has already set up for that because I haven't done the ASD facilities, but it would be interesting to see that get pushed out to the next system if they're going to carry on with that set of activities or whatever. Certainly gives them an opening for it. What else? Is that it? Instancing. That's something okay. Dynamic server meshing / instancing. Except, is it really early in the process? Let me check here. Initial recce estimates, DSM making steady progress. Yeah, no. Well, they said it's stuff that they're working on. So yeah, I think they will be working on instancing. I just don't think they're gonna. You can see that being like a Q4 thing. It's one of those things that will take longer than any of us want or they expect. But not as long as you might think otherwise. So now, can they do that in 2 hours? I think so. The hangar upgrades, player-to-player, blueprints, like all this crafting stuff would all be in one segment. This stuff might be in terms of the command module, ship-to-ship resupply, and anything to do with drones. It'll all be in the ship talk, especially for any upcoming. Especially if they announce more than the ones... They can announce a ship without actually pre-sailing. It is possible. I think they are capable of it. They might have done it at least once. So, yeah. Okay. That's going to be the predictions for tomorrow.